Andrew here with Right Channel Radios, and in this video we're going to move beyond CB fundamentals and start to talk about the different specific types of antennas, radio features, and how to think about what equipment is going to work best for your specific vehicle. We'll cover how to pick a radio and specifically radio features, the different types of antennas and how to pick one for your rig, and finally different mounting considerations you should keep in mind as you're thinking about where to put that antenna on your vehicle. Now, this is going to provide, again, a high-level framework to really be able to evaluate all your options. If you are driving a Jeep or a pickup truck, which is really, kind of two of the most popular vehicles we specialize on here at Right Channel, we've got two guides specifically on the best mounting locations, the best radios, and the best antennas based on our experience for these vehicles in specific resources on our learning center. So if you're on our website, check them out right below. If not, head on over to rightchannelradios.com and click on the learning center to learn more about those. So CB radio features, let's dive into this. And we mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating. When you're picking a CB, as much as Arnold is going to persuade you otherwise, it's not about output power. All CBs pretty much broadcast at 4 watts of power. And so it comes down to thinking about features. And so here's some of the features that you might want to think about if any of these are really important to you in terms of a CB radio, and then you can shop accordingly. Weather, the ability to get weather alerts is something that comes on a lot of radios, and you can flip a switch and just get a real-time weather update right on your CB. A backlit display, this is something where you really get a really nice fully illuminated display with most of the lettering most of the time kind of backlit and all the knobs and dials, and so you can really, it's very, very simple to use the radio at night because everything is lit up. Public address system. Many radios have the ability to attach a PA horn or a PA speaker to the back of the radio. Most people will mount it in their hood or on their bumper. And then with a flip of the switch, when you use your CB and talk into your CB mic, instead of it broadcasting out on the CB waves, it's going to amplify your voice and broadcast outside of your vehicle, which can be helpful sometimes. Channel scanning, just like the channel scanner on your radio, you just flip a switch and your CB is going to search for activity on any channel. So instead of you having to go try to monitor all these different channels, it'll go around and let you know when something's happening on a channel other than the one that you're on. Bluetooth, if you talk on your phone a lot and you want to be able to use your CB to talk hands-free in your vehicle, Bluetooth equipped radios can allow you to do that. A built-in SWR meter. An SWR meter is what we use to really set up our antenna and tune it once it's installed for peak performance. And having a built-in one can be real handy. The external meters probably work a little bit better, but it is, again, like I mentioned, convenient having one built into your radio. And then finally, single sideband. I mentioned just a couple minutes ago that all radios transmit at the same power, and a tiny bit of a lie. With single sideband, this is the one exception where you can get a radio that broadcasts at 12 watts instead of 4 watts, effectively giving you really pretty much 3 times the range. The only caveat is that you're going to need somebody on the other end of your transmission to also have a single sideband or an SSB radio to be able to talk with them. So if maximum range is important to you, and especially if you're outfitting a fleet of vehicles or you're going to be talking with other SSB equipped folks, it's a great option to consider. Finally, think size. If you've got a huge semi-truck you're outfitting, you can put whatever you want in there most likely. If you're putting a CB into a small little VW Bug, which would be strange, but if you're doing that, you're going to want something, much smaller, of course. So make sure you think about that as you're shopping. So let's start talking about antennas. When you're thinking about an antenna, what do you need to be considering to make sure you get good performance? Well, there's 3 rules. The first one is higher equals better. The higher up you can mount your antenna, the better it's going to perform, all things equal. Longer is better. This doesn't come as a surprise, but if you mount a tiny little 2-foot antenna on your vehicle, you're probably not going to get incredible performance. So, especially for off-roading, 3-foot really is the minimum we recommend, and if you can get a 4-foot on there, that's even better or longer. And then finally, the coil of the antenna must be above the roof line to not run into performance issues. And what do I mean by a coil? Well, you can see here this is a center load antenna. We'll talk about them in a minute. And there's that really tightly wrapped kind of coil section in the middle. And all antennas have this. It's very noticeable on this antenna. But all antennas have it, even if you can't see it. And the coil is where the antenna signal the antenna performs most of its activity. So it's the point where the signal radiates out from primarily, and it's the point where it has the best reception as well. So we need to be thinking about where that coil is on our antenna, and different antennas have coils in different places. So there's 3 different types of antennas. There's a fiberglass antenna, a magnet antenna, and then a center load antenna. We'll dive into each one of these individually. Let's tackle fiberglass antennas first. These are the ones you probably are most familiar with, especially if you're in the off-road market, you've got a pickup truck and had CBs before. Very common. You can see here it's a long, maybe quarter inch diameter fiberglass antenna that sticks out. You can see the top there, and fiberglass antennas always mount to the vehicle by a separate mount. They need to screw into that mount, and they need a separate piece of coax cable to connect to the radio, as you can see there. And a lot of times you can put springs and disconnects, all sorts of different accessories. It's pretty flexible what you can do with them. So fiberglass antennas, these are the most popular antennas we sell for off-road use, especially with Jeeps and other 4x4s used on the trail, just because they're really versatile. You can mount them just about anywhere. They do need a mount and a coax individually, like I said before, which is, they do need that, but it allows you to pair it up with pretty much anything for mounting just about anywhere. And they're really heavy duty. They hold up to the rigors of off-road use much better than the other antenna types we're going to talk about. The coil for these antennas is at the top, which is another big advantage. If you're using a soft top Jeep or a vehicle that doesn't have a big ground plane, again, antennas will use the metal of the vehicle to help send and receive a signal. And having that coil at the top, the most important part of the antenna at the top, really helps with performance. That's another reason they're popular. In terms of range, for a 3-foot, if it's mounted well and well grounded, you'll probably get 3 to 4 miles roughly, plus or minus. For a 4-foot, you're looking more in the 4 to 6 mile range. And again, these are rough estimates and depending on conditions. So the second type of antenna is a magnet antenna. And you can see here, this is, we've got one mounted on just a pickup truck, the top of a pickup truck here. And the magnet's going to have 3 parts. It's going to have your coax cable that comes into the base, and that's the base there in the middle. And then it has a long, really thin, skinny whip that goes up the top, almost the size of a paper clip, very, very thin. So this is all in one, like the fiberglass antenna we talked about, comes in 3 parts: the antenna, the mount, and the coax, all kind of sold separately. All magnet mount antennas are going to come with all 3 of these components wrapped into one piece. So magnet antennas are fantastic for vehicles with metal roofs. If you have, for pickup trucks, I would argue they're probably one of, if not the best antenna choice for trucks, because you've got, they're easy to install. They're mounted high up as you can get on the roof. They're centrally located, so you get a good signal performance all the way around. There's no directional bias. They're fantastic choices if you got a metal roof, and no clearance issues. Not so good for soft or fiberglass tops. So again, Jeepers aren't going to use a lot of these just because they're, they don't mount well on metallic roofs, and other mounting locations apart from the roof aren't ideal. The coil is at the bottom of these. So that base there, that's where the antenna coil is. And so remember, we talked about before, it's important to get the coil at or above the roof line. Well, that really pretty much limits where you can put these, for the most part, to the roof. And so if you can't mount it on a roof, you're kind of out of luck with these type of antennas. For range, they usually come, in the 3-foot range, and then the 5-foot range are the most popular 2 versions. And you can get them in 3-foot, you're going to see probably 2 to 4 miles of range mounted on the roof. And with a 5-foot, you're going to probably get more in the 5 to 7 miles of range. Finally, center load antennas is the third primary type that we're going to talk about. And with center loads, you've got a very, very stiff. It's not going to bend at all. It's just a metal shaft on the bottom. Usually, you've got a coil in the middle, a plastic coil that houses that primary part of the antenna, and then kind of similar to a magnet mount, you've got a really thin whip that goes up from there, anywhere from an additional 2 to 3 or 4 feet even. And these are really common on big rigs and semi-trucks. In fact, a lot of times people call them trucker antennas because they're so common on those vehicles. You can use them off-road, but we really don't recommend it as much because they can be damaged much more easily. That plastic coil housing is prone to break if you're going to be smashing it into things, or it hits rocks or gets caught up in trees. And also the fact that you've got a lower shaft that doesn't give at all, it's all metal. You've got more chance of damage to the antenna and also to the body of your vehicle. Like I mentioned, the coil is in the middle, so it can be harder to get that high up. This is on a pickup truck, and this probably works okay, but the coil isn't above the roof line and probably not working as well as it could. But you do get a little bit better range out of this. Usually for a decent trucker antenna or center load antenna, you're going to see 7 to 10 mile range. Finally, no ground antennas, probably not going to be super critical for most off-roaders or commercial use or truckers. But if you have a vehicle that doesn't have a lot of metal or doesn't have any metal, like a fiberglass, let's say a fiberglass RV, or maybe you're using a four-wheeler that has all plastic on the exterior, you're going to want a no ground plane antenna. You're going to get a hit with these type of antennas. They're not going to perform quite as well as a ground-based antenna would. But if you don't use one, if you try to use a standard antenna on a vehicle with very little metal, it's not going to work at all. So it's better to have, to take that small performance hit as opposed to have no performance. And you'll need special antenna and coax for this. They're usually sold in unique packages. So probably, again, not probably what most people here at Right Channel are going to need, but worth mentioning. So what's the best choice, especially if you're off-road? If you've got a pickup truck, if you've got a Jeep, if you're using this for industrial use, well, a fiberglass antenna or a magnet mount are really going to be the two best things that we recommend. Again, if you've got that metal roof, a magnet mount antenna is an awesome choice in terms of convenience, in terms of maximum performance. And if you've got a Jeep or an off-road vehicle and the antenna might get beat up a little bit more, we strongly recommend a fiberglass antenna. Those work really, really well. So when you're picking a mounting location, this is going to be particularly for fiberglass antennas, because you can mount those fiberglass antennas pretty much anywhere. The magnet mounts will go on the roof. You want to make sure you've got a good ground, a good vehicle ground. If you don't, your antenna is not going to work. So you can't mount your antenna right on the rubber of your spare tire. It's not going to work. Not that you would ever want to, but you need to mount it to the frame or to a place where you can very easily ground out that mount to the frame. Consider your specific vehicle. Again, there's a lot of different vehicles out there, and the ideal mounting location is gonna vary based on your vehicle. And so, how do you think about that? Well, we've got a wizard here at Right Channel Radios on the homepage, or you can get to it through the equipment section in the navigation, the top bar navigation. And we'll give you specific recommendations, especially for mounts for the vehicles that you have. And sometimes, depending on how popular your truck or off-road vehicle is, there's a good chance there will be a specific vehicle mount for your make and model. And if not, head on over to our mount page, just the CB mounts in our navigation at the very top of Right Channel there. And we've got all different types of mounts based on location and type and where they're at, and lots of different options there. And then again, finally, like I mentioned at the top, if you've got a Jeep or a truck, make sure to check out our specific guides in our Learning Center about the best mounting locations for both of these vehicles. That's it. Hopefully this gives you a much better idea of what type of radio to consider and also what to be thinking about when picking a CB antenna. Let us know if you have any questions, and thanks so much for shopping with us here at Right Channel Radios.